run through that with us briefly. So what I have is, of course, we all know that the um, popular ground rules, ensure that you mute your mic when you're not speaking. Try as much as possible to use the raise hand functionality when you have a question, so that we just have every everything organized. Respect each other's contribution. Every idea is good. So, and the last on my list will be that we are present, and then we are well engaged today. So moving forward, I would like to do a brief intro of Mrs. Joan Oben. Um, from the few information we gathered, we observed that Mrs. Joan Oben is the Regional Human Resources and Organizational Development Director with the SOS Children's Village International, covering parts of Eastern Europe, Central Asia, and the Middle East, and is currently based in Vienna, Austria. SOS Children's Village is present in more than 130 countries globally and is the largest NGO working to support children without parental care or at risk of losing it. Apologies. Mrs. Oben has over 25 years international experience across several countries in Africa, Europe, and Middle East at senior leadership positions across several industries, including oil and gas, financial services, manufacturing, real estate, and presently in the non-profit sector. She has a master's in human resource management and a bachelor's in economics. Mrs. Oben has been involved in several strategic HR initiatives, including competency development, cultural integration, and international transformations. Finally, she is also a certified change practitioner as well as a certified professional coach. So could you all please join me to welcome Ms. Joan Oben as she has the floor for a session. Thank you very much, ma'am.
Thank you, Titi. Thanks for having me.
So okay, we have this live already. Thank you very much, Faith, for providing that support. So over to you, ma'am.
Right. I thought you were going to introduce Yomi first, but that's okay.
Oh, you're starting first, I think. So that's why I did that. And then
Oh,
when he's about
that
to start the session, then I'll do that.
introduce him. Okay,
Yeah.
no problem. Um, Before I go into the topic of today, first I want to thank HRPL for having me, for giving me this platform. I think I joined this platform about 6 years or 7 years ago. Faith, I can't quite remember. But I must lend kudos to the founder, Faith Akintunde, as well as all the very energetic and able administrators who have supported this platform, numbering what, maybe 1,000 HR professionals today. I think it's a formidable act and platform that you have put together there that continues to support the HR professional in the country. So I just wanted to say those few words before I started in the topic. Right, international jobs. No matter what you choose or where you go for an international assignment, it really can provide you with a unique opportunity to grow personally and professionally and hopefully have a little fun along the way. I know that I did in my case. Now, international assignments can be quite exciting and can contribute positively to us, especially if you balance and plan it carefully. Balance being the key word here. Choosing a career in an international organization requires very high level of flexibility and mobility under conditions of sometimes uncertainty and unpredictability. And we shouldn't forget this. Sometimes we only think of the good side, but there are many sides to an international assignment. Contracts are oftentimes fixed. short term, 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, maybe longer if you're lucky. Postings are typically unfamiliar terrain and require different skill sets, sometimes not necessarily the technical knowledge in the subject matter that you have. So always think balance. Of course, there's the upside that international move brings opportunities for spouses and dependents that would otherwise not have been like. But like everything in life, there are several sides to an international career. So it's important to give serious thought to the other aspects before making that plunge. Dealing with what I've mentioned before, dealing with the unpredictability and uncertainty can take a toll. Leaving behind old folks, for example, can also take a toll. But the good news is that most of international assignments turn out good, most. So let's bear that in mind. The second thing I want to say about international assignments before we dive into where do we find them and what competencies do you need to be able to get them is that people should be prepared to take one step back before you take two steps forwards, or many steps forwards, as the case may be. Standards and structure differ between local and international contexts. So don't get too stuck on a specific job title, right? When looking for an overseas career move, if you're really looking to make a serious move and you're looking at the bigger picture, no need to get stuck on looking for a specific job title. Be prepared to take a rung lower in the beginning um, to give you the best chance of success, and then you can advance rapidly thereafter. For my experience is that for international assignments, the exposure and the experience counts for far more than the job title. So of course, eventually the title comes. A director profile takes several years to build on, and it's not likely to happen in one sweep. Takes many moves to get to director level. But focus less on the job title in the beginning and more on the opportunity to be had. And I think that will serve you well. So very briefly about international assignments, find the right balance and be prepared to take a step back. So now, speaking specifically about the jobs themselves in international organizations, let's think of what are the global issues that the world is dealing with? Who are the global organizations that are increasingly forced to tackle these problems, either on a continental level or on a regional level? So taking on these global problems is how these opportunities come about. I'll name a few. I'll start with child protection, which is where I am today. So thanks to wars and earthquakes and even simply poverty, right? Children find themselves in unfortunate situations of needing care. And somebody has to do the job of taking care of these children. Hence, the several organizations you have in the world that do that. Other global issues like security, climate change, environment, poverty, peace, justice, disarmament, finance, trade. There are specific international organizations that are taking on these issues. So I'll name some of them. So when you speak security, you think NATO, you think OSCE, you think WINS, World Institute for Nuclear Security. When you speak poverty, you think Oxfam, you think Care International, you think World Vision, you think World Hope, OPAD concern worldwide. When you speak child protection, you think SOS, Children's Villages, of course. You think Save the Children, you think Plan International. Just to name a few, when you speak Finance, trade, you think World Bank, you think ADB, you think WTO, World Trade Organization, you think IMF, the National Monetary Fund. So these international global organizations solving global issues is where these job opportunities are. And they cut across many industries. So whatever industry you are involved in today, there's most probably something out there for you, or your current skills are transferable to contribute to that effort. Now, besides clustering around global issues, organizations can also be clustered around location. And I mentioned already some intercontinental ones like WTO, IFC, IMF, intercontinental organizations. You have also continental ones per continent. So our continent, for example, Africa, the African Union that we're more familiar with, regional clusters like the ECOWAS for West Africa. So jobs are also clustered in that way, intercontinentally, continentally, and regionally. Talking about locations, even within the continental groupings, for historical reasons, some countries have a higher concentration of international organizations than others, and where you should be looking for your next position. For example, if you think of the African cluster, you will find more international jobs in Nairobi, Kenya, in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, in Tanzania, Arusha specifically, to a lesser extent in Abuja, Nigeria, and in Abidjan, Cote d'Ivoire. So think African Union, the HQ is in Addis, right? African Development Bank, the HQ is in Abidjan in Cote d'Ivoire. ECOWAS is in Abuja, Nigeria, and so many others. Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, like I said, is in Abuja, Nigeria. Economic Community of Central African States as well. Think Southern African Development Community. So those are regional groupings in Africa. In much the same way as you have clusters in Africa, you also have clusters on other continents. So if you're looking outside the continent, outside the African continent for your next job, the European cluster, for example, most of the jobs are around certain countries. The Hague, Netherlands, happen to host quite a lot of the international organizations around peace and justice. So the Permanent Court of Arbitration, the International Court of Justice, the tribunals, the special tribunals for Lebanon, special tribunal for Yugoslavia, they're all in The Hague. Geneva, Switzerland, Vienna, Austria hosts a lot of international organizations, hosts a lot of UN organizations as well. Brussels, Belgium hosts a lot of the European institutions, the European Parliament, the European Bank. And London, UK also hosts a lot of Commonwealth institutions, for example. So there are those clusters. In the Middle East, most of the jobs tend to be in Amman, Jordan, beautiful country. And in the US, around New York and Washington, D.C. is where they have most of the UN organizations. In Asia, it's in Manila, Philippines, and in Kathmandu in Nepal. So that's how some of the international jobs are clustered around those continents as I've named them. That's not to say that HR jobs do not exist outside these locations. They do. They're probably just harder to find. But besides these clusters, it also pays to look beyond the obvious locations, the ones that I've named, because in outside these locations, there's obviously less competition, especially if you're still in the early stages of your career. You want to be adventurous. You want to consider tapping into emerging markets like Thailand, like Vietnam, like the Philippines. Some institutions coming up there, and in this new frontier, the market may not be as mature as others, but there's less competition and there's plenty of opportunities. Not to mention, obviously, the fascinating local culture and heritage you have in those countries. I've mentioned a few acronyms and links which I have shared with Titi, and she will share those links to all our attendees later on. I think, yeah. So lastly, I conclude. Let's not forget the international organizations that are right here in Nigeria, on the continent, which we often ignore when we're thinking international. Mostly we're thinking offshore. Everybody wants to go offshore, but sometimes we go looking in Sokoto, what we have right here in our Sokoto, as they say. Organizations across all sectors. If I think of banking, for example, Citibank, Stanbic. If I think of manufacturing, Cummins, I'm an ex-Cummins employee. Coca-Cola, if I think FMCG, Unilever, Nestle, PZ. If I think even the consulting firms, the big four, Deloitte, Accenture, KPMG, I forget the last one, and oil and gas, Shell. If I think BAT, Telecoms, MTN, Guinness, Diageo, GE, General Electric, HP, many more. They are right here in Nigeria. They are international organizations. They offer opportunities. So sometimes we don't necessarily have to go too far to find those opportunities, and the work culture is the same. So I'll summarize. Find the right balance, know who is solving the world's problems, familiarize yourself with the locations where these opportunities can be found. Do not stick only to those opportunities, try also new frontiers. Do not forget the international organizations that are right here at home. And I'm sure we will find good opportunities. I'll hand over to Titi to introduce our next speaker. Titi, thanks. Titi?
Yeah, yeah. Thank you very much, Ma. Thank you for the great and insightful session. Thank you for sharing opportunities that we can get in Africa, Europe, and other places that we may not see to have enough for us. I know that you had mentioned Vietnam, the Philippines, Thailand, and I'm sure that people are already taking note of all of this, and they would, after the session, find the time to make much more research and then see how to, take as much steps in ensuring that they grab some coins or share from the cookie jar that they have in those regions. So I would like to check if we have Professor Fawehinmi here with us. Is he in the room?
Yes, I'm here.
Hey, great, Prof. Thank you for joining us. So we have Professor Fawehinmi in the room, and then I would like to quickly just go through his brief profile and then hand over to him. So Professor Fawehinmi is a vision-driven human resources professional with a proven history of innovation and achievement. Throughout his 15 plus years career, he has established a reputation as a transformational leader who is driven by new challenges, undeterred by obstacles, and committed to furthering standards of excellence. His expertise lies in successfully partnering with the executives and management to proactively address business issues about workforce development, organizational planning, and employee engagement and productivity. He possesses diverse experiences in both research and practice of the profession, developing and delivering people-related solutions, and has served as an in-house consultant on several organizational development interventions. He's also served as the HR lead for 24-hour operations of over 7,000 unionized workforce from over 12 countries and accountable for various talent management processes, including driving employee engagement and recognition. A certified trainer, leadership development facilitator, and coach in career management and leadership. A speaker, best-selling author, who has published books and remained a sought-after speaker for professional conferences and events. He is interested in helping people become the best they can be and support organizations and communities and institutions to improve. He loves to meet people and leave them better than when they met him. Oh, met him. Apologies for that. Welcome, Professor Fawehinmi. Your profile is so rich. I hope that one day I'll be able to have something close to this very soon. You may have the floor now, sir.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thanks for the very generous introduction. And thanks again to Madam Joan, who spoke before me. Thanks for all those references and particular emphasis on the various opportunities. Some of those countries and towns that she mentioned are areas that some of us will need to write down. And I'm so happy she said she sent a link for us to get these things. Thanks, man. Thanks for doing a great job. Let me also thank the organizers for inviting me. I do not take it for granted. I appreciate it, and I'm happy that some people are joining. Finally, let me thank all those that joined too for spending your time on this Saturday. So my assignment is to follow up on the very effective and rich starting point that Madam Joan has done and talk more about competency, strategy, and tips. So let me start by talking about competencies. It's great that many of the people on this call are HR people, so they are not surprised about why I have to start from competency. So if somebody wants an international job, the reason why we get international job are several. Part of it is that there's a vacancy. You know, many times people don't forget that you don't get jobs except there's a vacancy. If I don't need the lawyer, if you are the best lawyer in the world, I don't care because I don't need the lawyer. So there's a part of, okay, there's a vacancy somewhere. But the question, therefore, is, am I competent to fill that vacancy? We spend a lot of time complaining about the lack of the vacancy or where the vacancy is on. But the question is, and that's where I'm starting from, that the first point is me being ready. I'm a Christian. My pastor says that success happens when preparation meets opportunity. So the vacancy is the opportunity, and it's not under my control nor your control, right? If ILO or UN or Save Our Children or Save Our Souls does not create a vacancy, there's nothing me and you can do about that, right? But there's something we can do to prepare, and that's going to be my own focus. What can we do to prepare? She has spoken a lot about the opportunity. My focus is around preparation. So I'll start with competencies. And for those HR people here, we know competencies is essentially 3-4 critical things: your knowledge, your skills, and your ability. And some people call attitude. I put attitude under ability. So it's KSA, as I like to describe it, your competencies are 3 essential things: your knowledge, your skills, and then your ability. So I'll just try to speak very briefly on it because I have such a short time to do this. So if you want to work internationally, you must have to ask yourself, do I have the knowledge to work internationally? Now, the knowledge to work internationally is different from working in the local place. So for example, I used to be an HR professional working in Nigeria. I know HR laws. I know the National Industrial Codes. Actually, on every on almost a daily basis, I read judgments from the National Industrial Court of Nigeria almost on a daily basis. I mean, I know many of those cases like the back of my hand, which is great. And so when they're talking about what happens in Nigeria based on the law, I can speak competently about it. But if I desire to have an international job, I can't only have local knowledge. I must also have global knowledge. And therefore, you need to ask yourself, am I working to increase my global knowledge? Now, she has mentioned all those countries where those things are. So part of the knowledge we need to start to deliberately cultivate is the local knowledge in those areas. So HR practice are general and also specific. So for example, in some countries, you need to know what are their own laws. I mean, so for example, in Nigeria, there's actually no law against sexual harassment in the workplace. When the Microsoft versus AGK case brought up the National Industrial Court, she had to leverage on the UN Convention around it. So that means that if a Nigerian HR person wants to work internationally, he must be conscious that, okay, I want to go and work in Canada, I want to go and work in the US. What does the law in those countries say about? So we need to start to have both local and local law. So we must increase our knowledge of the profession in the place where we are going to. We must increase our knowledge of the profession and the laws in the place where we are going to. And finally, we must increase our knowledge of the country we desire to go to. I'm going to give you this very interesting example. A couple of years back, I took a decision to become certified as an HR professional in 3 countries, in the UK, in the US, and in Canada, like 10 years ago. I apparently did not know that the more complicated one was going to be the UK, where I was trying to get a fellowship of the CIPD. I was trying to get a SHRM certification from America, and I was also trying to get a certification from Canada. And this was I took over 10 years ago. I was still working in Nigeria then. Now, what I didn't know, and that's why the knowledge of the country is very important, was that in the UK, there is a CIPD that covers the whole of UK. In the US, there is SHRM that covers the whole of there. I did not know that in Canada, professional bodies are registered by territories, the equivalent of states. So, for example, in Canada, you don't have ICANN of Canada. What you will have is ICANN of Ontario, ICANN of Saskatchewan, ICANN of Alberta. So I decided to start to pursue registration in Canada over 10 years ago. And I thought that once I got that registration, I was good. So I registered and I got a certification. And I came to Canada to pick up a job. And I was told that the province the job with does not recognize the certification. That was when I now knew that in Canada, it is a province that regulates that. I mean, many Nigerian doctors leave Nigeria to come and work in Canada, and they get into a lot of trouble. In Nigeria, in Canada, for example, if you're a doctor in Alberta, you cannot go and be a doctor in Saskatchewan. Saskatchewan is just the next province. As in, if you drive out of Alberta, the next place is Saskatchewan. So it's like, I'm a doctor in Ogun State, but I can't practice in Lagos. Actually, it's so restrictive that not only can you not practice, you cannot pick a call of somebody from another province. If you do not know that, you'll be trying to get professional certification that will not help you. If you're a nurse in Nigeria, for example, and you want an international job in Nigeria, in Canada, if you decide to come to Ontario, you're not going to be a nurse in Ontario. It's not going to happen. But if you understand Canada and you decide to go to Prince Edward Islands, just 2 weeks ago, they lifted the restriction on doctors or nurses from Nigeria to go to Prince Edward Island. Then it pays you to go. So you must also understand the country that you want to go to. The last example I'm going to give you is a province in Canada called Saskatchewan. Saskatchewan is about the size of Nigeria. Over 30 or 40% of nurses in Saskatchewan are from a particular country, the Philippines. So if you want your child to become a nurse, an international nurse, to work in Canada, don't send your child to go and study nursing in OAU or Unilag or IFE. Send that child to go to Philippines, and that child is going to get a job in Saskatchewan, almost automatically after he graduates. Now, so you must understand that. So that's the knowledge part. The skill part is basically the same in HR. So whether you are a doctor or you want to do a surgery in Nigeria versus surgery in Togo, is almost the same thing. If you want to do job evaluation in Nigeria or you want to do job evaluation elsewhere, it's almost the same thing. So the skills are basic there. All we need to do is just elevate our skills to the right level. And then the abilities too are basic. So the challenge is always where we need to then is to improve our knowledge. In terms of skills and ability, they're a little bit almost the same. So what knowledge do you want to increase? Now, so if we have dealt with the issue of competencies, then the next thing we need to ask ourselves is that, what do I do to inspire somebody outside from Nigeria to like my competencies or to be interested in my competencies? I always tell people that people don't always remember that recruitment and selection is an inspirational program. I'm a doctor, I'm a lawyer, I'm an HR person. I go for an interview. All those people on the interview panel, all the English we speak, all you're trying to do is to inspire them. If you don't inspire them, they don't give you a job. You may be qualified, but you did not inspire them. You may be the best candidate, but you did not inspire them. You may be the most experienced, but you did not inspire them. So we must be very deliberate that our goal in getting a job is to inspire people. So you must ask yourself that very simple question: what can I do? So I'm done with my competence. I think, yes, I have competence to pick up a job in Lebanon or in Syria or in Madagascar. Number two, what will I do to inspire somebody in Madagascar to ignore everybody in Madagascar and come and pick me in Nigeria? You understand that? Because we need to be very conscious of that. So I want to work in the US. The employer in US has a choice to pick somebody from the US. What you're saying is that forget all the over 300 million people in US. Forget all the over 20 million people in Canada. Forget the over 30 million people in Mexico. Fly to Nigeria and pick me. What will you do to inspire the person? Number one of the things to do to inspire the person is certification. So, for example, you can be in Nigeria and get the certification of the country you are trying to get. In fact, that may be one of the easiest way, because at that point, once you say so that was why, for example, I deliberately chose to pursue the SHRM GPHR certification at that point, because I wanted to inspire them. So they can't tell me I'm not competent. I'll have the certification of country. So you may go after the certification of the country you are going to, and be very deliberate of the certification you are going after. Number two, I may want to inspire them by my social media strategy or plans. So, for example, I post regularly on Nigerian labor issues. If you follow me on LinkedIn or you follow me on Facebook, you notice I post a lot on HR issues. Initially, when I was in Nigeria, I used to post on Nigeria issues because I was in Nigeria. But when I started to work outside Nigeria as an HR person, I started to post about issues that are international, and sometimes they are just Nigerian issues. So let me give you a strategy I had to change 2 years ago. So if it is, for example, so March is the month for women, right? So on International Women's Day, I wrote an article. Before now, I would just write article and cite issues that happen in Nigeria, or cite court cases that happen in Nigeria. But from last year, I had to become more deliberate. So while I cite cases in Nigeria, I also cite cases in Canada and in the US, because those are my 3 focal countries. So, and you realize that the issues are all the same, right? Thanks, okay, Dave. I hear, sir. That's my guy from the beginning. So you need to be very deliberate to use your social media to inspire people. So, for example, if a recruiter goes to my LinkedIn profile or goes to my Facebook, he will see that this guy understands the issues we are dealing with. Now, when they are also celebrating in those countries, so yes, a couple of days back was the US Equal Pay Day. It is not celebrated in Nigeria. It is not celebrated in Canada. It's only celebrated in US. Post about it. And you don't need to post what is original. Just go online, Google the subject, and share on your LinkedIn page and let people know you are interested in the subject. So you can use your social media to increase that inspirational appeal. You can also use your learned contribution. So if you're a member of SHRM or a CIPD, you can publish in their journals and all of that. And finally, you can use your professional activity. You can actually volunteer. Like 10 years ago, SHRM is the biggest HR professional body in the US. I became a member of SHRM, and they decided that they wanted to, just for you to understand how these things can work, right? So for the first time, they decided that they wanted to raise an expert committee on corporate responsibility and ethics. They never had anything like that. And so they were looking for people that could become members of that global expert committee. I was new in HR at that point, but my background was working in public affairs and corporate responsibility. So I had worked in public affairs, I worked in corporate responsibility, I worked in ethics for many years. When HR started saying they want to be talking about corporate responsibility and ethics, actually, I published many articles on corporate responsibility and ethics. I have a case that I did for the Lagos Business School, for example. So I felt that this is me, this is where I should be. So I applied, and they accepted me. And for 4 years, I was on that global expert panel, the first in the world. And we wrote like 2 reports. You can check the reports, they're available online, about corporate responsibility and HR. Now, I use that to enhance my credibility, because now this is HR in the US trying to get into the space of corporate responsibility and global ethics. And I, as a Nigerian, am being put on an expert panel in the US to talk about it. Now, I need them, I need them to increase my credibility, but they also needed me to increase their own credibility. Why? I had worked in corporate responsibility for many years. So I was an expert. I was teaching in university about the subject. So it was a win-win situation. So you can use your professional activities to do that. So I've talked about your competencies. I've talked about what you need to do to start to increase how you can inspire people. The last thing is I just want to talk about strategy. So what strategy? And I'll be done on that. I mean, our time is fast spent. Number one, strategy is answering some basic questions. One, what do you see? What do you see? Do you see yourself working abroad? Do you see yourself working in Ghana? Do you see yourself working in Togo? Do you see yourself working there? What exactly do you see? Because when people say, I want to have an international job, I was like, what does that really mean? I mean, Madam Joan has spoken a lot about the various. So you can't just say you want to have an it's too broad. What you are seeing is too blurry, right? So it can't be, I want an international job. It could be, I want to work for a United Nations organization on social justice in the Middle East. That's a better picture than I want to do an international job. So what do you see? You must be clear what you see, very clear. Or do you want to work in so place? So after saying that, after you are saying what do you see, the next question here is, how do I get there? I mean, that's the basic strategy question. How do I get there? How do I get, okay, so I've seen this, how do I get there? Now, there are various ways you can go there. The Yoruba people says that not one road leads you to a market. Many roads, there are many ways. So if you work for so one of the ways, for example, for some people is, today they are working for Dangote. Dangote in Nigeria is essentially a Nigerian company. I'm not saying it's not international, it's essentially a Nigerian company. Now, once you go to work for a Dangote or you go to work for ABC Microfinance Bank, you cannot take some routes to get international jobs. But part of your route may be, I'm going to work for a multinational. So I move from my company, I deliberately go and work in Shell, or I go to work in Chevron. Why? I want to tap into that network. I'm going to give you the example. I hope people can relate with it. Shell is one of the model companies I studied in Nigeria because of their very strategic nature. Shell has a company that is not Shell. It's a Shell company, but the employees don't get the full benefits of the full Shell staff. And people were resigning from big companies in Nigeria to go and work as technically a contract staff for Shell. So I had a conversation because I was curious. I was part of that process. I had a conversation. Hey, you're leaving, you're a so person. And that man told me, I said, if you notice many of the people that virtually everybody in my company at my level applied, he said, we're not looking for the salary. We're looking for the name. So here am I am HR director in Oluomo Industrial Enterprises. How does that inspire somebody in the US to give you a job? So the guy said, what I want is I want to leave Oluomo Nigeria Limited. I want to go and work in Shell. The person abroad does not know that this Shell is not the original Shell. In the hire of somebody in the abroad or in Netherlands, Shell is Shell. Now, so you may need to ask yourself, so how do I get that? So this person's strategy was, I leave my Oluomo and Sons, I go to anything called Shell, and then use that to move, right? So ask yourself, how do I want to get there? Is it by being transferred? Is it by cross-posting? Is it by applying? Is it by going to do a volunteer job? Nigeria has a technical aids corps where the Nigerian government advertises every year professionals to go to different countries. So that's a strategy you may want to take. For example, there are countries that write Nigerians to send professionals to them. The chief land surveyor of many African countries are Nigerians, sent by Nigeria to go and work there. That the chief justice of many African countries are Nigerians who are sent to go and work there. So all those, you must ask yourself, how do I want to get there? Number 3, so I can see clearly, how will I get there? What are my gaps? What are the gaps I have? Typical classical competency management studies is called a gap analysis. So what are the gaps? Oh, I don't know. I don't have a network. I don't know the people. So what are the gaps? And finally, how do I fill the gaps? So now I don't know people that can connect me to some organization. You have heard Madam Joan speaking about some organization. Okay, why don't I follow her on LinkedIn? I say, Madam, I was there, so you can give me a bit. You heard me talk a lot about the US and the America. You can, what if you say, let me connect with this person, maybe you can give me some more information. And then finally, I need to review my strategy. Is it working? Oh, so 5 years ago, I wanted to work in Togo. It's now 5 years. I've not said working. So is it working? There's no need to romance a strategy that is not delivering the goods. Check evaluation is very important. So I'm going to stop on that note, and I think we can take questions at this point. Thank you very much.
Wow, wow, wow. Thank you very much, Prof. Thank you so much. Faith, you'll agree with me that this is mind-blowing, is revealing, knowing that there are certain things that we do at the moment and we need to reevaluate whether or not they're working, and also knowing whether we are working in the right direction. Thank you very much. And once again, thank you, Mrs. Oben, for your time too, because I can see the sync between your session and that of Professor Fawehinmi. So now we'll go straight to question time. If you have questions, 2 options for you. One, maybe to raise your hand. Uncle Dave, no, we won't allow you leave Nigeria. You cannot leave Nigeria, Uncle Dave, okay? One is to raise your hand, and the other option for you is to drop your question in the chat box, and I'm sure that we'll pick that up and also read out so that our speakers can respond to the question. So I have one hand raised. Uncle Dave, you may proceed to unmute your mic and then ask your question.
Yeah, thanks, Titi, and thanks to Madam Joan and Professor Yomi for beautiful presentation. I think that's a good presentation that people should learn from. Joan opened our eyes to see some of the places that are available. Like Yomi said, connect with her to get that done. And Yomi presented, made a good presentation on the KSA. The only thing I want to just add is about to emphasize more is about mobility. For international job, mobility is key. Most of us want to get international job, but the aspect of mobility, we are just ready by mouth. When it comes to that, we are not actually ready. Mobility is very key in international job because, like Joan said, leaving your friends behind and attach your family. You have to relocate temporarily without your family. And it's not easy settling down, adjusting to the new environment. Those of us who have had some international job, had that kind of, you have to be ready, both physically, mentally, and in your mind before you start seeking for opportunities to get an international job. And it's very, very key. That's why I want to add that to this discussion. Thank you for the opportunity given to me.
Thank you very much, Mr. Eric. Do we have more questions? If you have a question, please feel free. Don't worry, we won't ask you to show us your real face if that's why you don't want to ask your question. Just feel free. Or you can mute your mic and then ask. Thank you.
Okay, so I think there's a question in the chat room. So do you want to take it?
Okay, yes, so I'll take it. This question is from Toyin Agomi, and says, my question is that can undergoing a master's degree in Manitoba, Canada, for instance, also be a route? For some of us that don't have Shell connections, sir. Oh, thanks. So this goes to Professor Fawehinmi. So people are coming for you now.
Yeah,
This one called Shedada.
Okay, thanks. Thanks for the person who asked the question. That's a very great question. Yes, I mean, education could be a route for you to get a job. If you go to school in a country, you are building your network. there, you can also likely get more people interested, inspiring people. So yes, going to a school in Manitoba could be a very great way for you to do that. One of the limitations that recent migrants have in many countries is lack of what they call experience or educational connection to where they are. Yeah, so it's a great place. Somebody said, okay, you don't know anybody in Shell. Let me amuse you. You know, have you heard about the 6 degrees of separation principle? Okay, so in a nutshell, what that principle says is that between you and anybody in the world, there are only 6 people. Between you and Barack Obama, there are only 6 people. Now, if you don't know those 6 people, you will never reach Barack Obama. But if you know the right 6 people, and they don't need all to know Barack Obama, it's only the last one that needs to know Barack Obama. So that person that has that question, let me give you very simple 6 principle in this case. You want to know somebody in Shell, just go to LinkedIn and type people in Shell. Let me tell you something I'm sure of. If you attended university in Nigeria, you will see an alumni of your school that works in Shell. It may not be your mates, but he attended University of Ibadan or University of Ife. I know LinkedIn is very nice. They will tell you, Shell, you have 17 connections there. Look through those connections. You may be surprised that your neighbor works in Shell. You may be surprised that your pastor's son works in Shell. So those are those things that we can use to, you can, in today's world with social media, you can connect with anybody. So let me give you the simple 6 degrees of separation to anybody you want to. You want to connect to Barack Obama today. That's what you want to do. Number 1, you attend Living Faith Church. That's Winners Chapel. Let's assume that's your church. You know your pastor, right? You have a pastor or whatever they call the head of that. So that's your first person. Go and tell pastor, I want to link Barack Obama. That your pastor knows Bishop David Oyedepo. Is that correct? Or knows somebody that knows Bishop David. So between you and Bishop Oyedepo are just 2 people. So once you meet Bishop David, do you know that Bishop David can introduce you to Olusegun Obasanjo? Because both of them are both in Ofa, right? So Bishop Oyedepo introduces you to Olusegun Obasanjo. Olusegun Obasanjo knows Barack Obama. So with the 5 right people, you can connect to Barack Obama. So when people say, I don't know anybody anywhere, I will say, no, there's nothing really called that in today's world. Social media has bridged the gap between you and anyone. So Madame Joan spoke. She worked with SOS Children's Village. As we currently speak now, I'm sure you know, you may not have a direct access to Madame Joan, but you know the organizers of this program, right? Somebody invited you. So tell that person that invited you that, please, can you connect me to the organizers of this program, Abby? Those organizers of this program can connect you to Madame Joan, right? Madame Joan, who works with SOS, can connect you with anybody in SOS. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? So you realize that sometimes you just need to know the right person. I'm just going to end on a very interesting and funny note. Somebody needed something in Lagos. He had been trying to get it for 3 or 4 months and he didn't get it. So he was the one telling me afterwards. So he sent me a message. I was in Canada at that time. I said, Prof, I need this thing. Can you help me? So I said, hold on. And I sent a message to like 2 people. So I sent the person, I said, okay, please go and meet this person on Monday. They will get it for you. So the person on Monday goes to it and got it. So that person now said, that he doesn't understand this word, though, that he is in Lagos. He needs something in Lagos. That when he was thinking about who will get it for him, he was thinking about all his friends in Lagos. That something just asked him to ask me in Canada whether I can help him. And that it is me in Canada that was able to connect him with the right source in Lagos. He said, so the person now said, sometimes, in this world, is our head we used to block our blessing. Now, why did I not think about the fact that you can help me despite the fact that you're in Canada? You'll be shocked the number of people you can connect with benefit of social media. I hope I answered that question.
If I can just add a few things there, I'm actually an ex-Shell employee, so all the reference to Shell I found quite interesting. But yes, study is one route to an international assignment. It's not the only route, like Yomi said, the study, there's also networking, there's also making sure that you have the ability. And where you study is also very important. A lot of countries now, it used to be in the past that when you finish your study in the UK, you had to return immediately. I think that has changed now. Now they grant you a couple of years of work permit to be able to work. The Netherlands has a policy where they grant you 2 years of work permit post-study to be able to work. Other countries I'm not so sure about. So research will tell you where to go and study so that you don't go and study in a country where you have to pack your bags and start returning almost immediately and you have no opportunity to work. And just to add as well to that notion that Yomi mentioned about the 6 degrees of opportunity, it may surprise you to know that I had never heard about SOS until I applied for the job. In fact, I was headhunted. Somebody called me up and said, there's this job in SOS and are you interested? And I looked at it and I thought, I could never do this job. It's too big a job. But here I am almost 2 years into the job. I've worked in 3 or 4 international organizations. I never knew anyone in any of them before I applied for the job. Once I see the advert that I think is interesting for me, then, like Yomi said, I look in LinkedIn. Who knows who knows who knows who? And one way or the other, like 6 degrees of separation, you might just find somebody who knows who it is that you're looking for. Just a little research and you might get there. I just wanted to add that.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Thank you so much. I think I would like to add one more thing to this, especially to Tony's question. It's good to know that you're currently studying or undergoing your master's program in Manitoba. I would also suggest that you explore opportunities attached to student volunteering programs. I know that there are organizations that target universities for placement like this, and then you would be amazed at the things that you'll find if you attend the job fair. I know that for those placements, they are usually paid, and the minimum wage is someone's 2-year salary in Nigeria. So I think you should explore the opportunities too. In your province, check out employment agencies that often conduct this job fair exercises and see how you can partake. Okay. So more questions. We still have time to treat questions. The topic is still securing international jobs. Professor Fawehinmi, I need international job. Oh, come and link me up to Joe Biden. I don't mind. So
I think you should talk to Madam Joan, or she may be able to link you more effectively. I just think that at the end of the day, we can all, if we're deliberate, connection is not always a problem. I mean, if we are very deliberate, there are people here on this. I mean, so for example, I greeted, I said my Oga David Yere. I mean, David Yere was my boss when I worked in Nigeria. I didn't know he was on this call. I didn't even know he has any relationship with this group, for example. So this group had made me connect to somebody I lost a connection with, and that's how those things work, and all of those things and all of that. So that's that. Do you want me to read this question, because I can see a question there? Since this is specific, and Madam could add, so I think the question is from Tony Lasaki. I hope, is this a Tony Lasaki I know? Okay, earlier on, my question, can one write the professional HR certification for a Canadian province for Nigeria? Yes, you can, in some provinces. Just know this as a general rule of thumb that in Canada, the smaller, the colder the province is, the easier is it to become a professional there. So if it is smaller or colder, then they want people. So it's just a general rule of thumb. So you can do that from Nigeria. You can also think about some certification that is registrable in Canada. So let me give you an instance. If you have the SHRM senior SCP something, the senior professional in HR, whatever it's called by SHRM, that certificate is registrable with 4 provinces in Canada. I'm sure you've seen many people write SHRM, right? So Canada, SHRM has what they call reciprocity agreement with some provinces in Canada. So if you just write SHRM, you can automatically register for 3 provinces in Canada, for example. I'm not aware CIPD has with any province. I'm just using that to realize that you can stay in Nigeria, write an exam directly. That's 1. 2, you can stay in Nigeria, write a professional exam in Nigeria that is registrable by that with that province.
Yeah. And to add to that, I'm not so sure about CIPD and Canada, but I know that you can stay in Nigeria and be CIPD qualified. CIPD is more UK centric or Eurocentric, is more recognized in Europe. I don't think they use CIPD in Canada or the US, more the SHRM or the HRCI that they use in the United States and in Canada. Both of them used to be part of the same organization, by the way. I found out recently, until maybe 10 years ago or so, when they split the SHRM and the HRCI. But CIPD, you definitely, I think most people know that you can become CIPD certified while you are still in Nigeria. You don't have to be in the UK to be CIPD certified.
Okay, Tony, just a quick comment. This is a Dave. Just an addition to encourage you guys. I did SPHR, global remuneration, global benefits, and all the World at Work certification from Nigeria. And up to now, I still get offer of employment because of those certifications, because I kept them on. So you can do all those things from Nigeria, and you will see a lot of job offers. For HR guys, if you want some of those job offers, go and do the World at Work, global benefit, global remuneration, comp and ben certification. They are in their need. Once you get them out of the country, people will look for you. I get offers every time.
That's absolutely. Thank you, Dave, for that. I have been looking for a compensation advisor on my team for the last 15 or 16 months. It's such a rare skill. It's just, I wasn't aware of that. It's just not available. The people who are in that profession are so overpriced. People are asking for 100,000, 120,000 euros annually for that position. So it's a position that I've been unable to fill. So yeah, some skills out there are just very, very hard to find. And if you have certification in that area, you might just be on your way.
Yeah, I got an offer of $180,000. I said 300,000, but last month. And anyway, I'm not picking. So it's good to encourage people to go to those areas. Thank you.
Uncle Dave, coming to your DM, this one that I'm hearing $300,000, you know. I'm gonna crawl into your DM, sir. Just joking. Do we have more questions, please? I'm not sure if we have treated Faith Akintunde's question, have we? Or is that the same as that of Toyin Lasaki? Or we need to attend to it?
What's the question? Read it out, Titi.
So she says, can one write the professional HR certification for a Canadian province from Nigeria, or one has to be in Canada before writing the province HR professional certification?
I
think that
Sorry, it was the
question
same
goes to-
question. Yeah.
That
Okay.
It was the same
addressed
question
already.
by Titi. I just pasted it.
Yeah, that has been
Thank you.
addressed already. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, by our time is 5 o'clock Nigerian time, so we're still waiting to see if we have more questions. Sorry about that background. I have my soldiers around, so that's why I'm sorry about that.
If I can just ask, if I can just add a few things while waiting, while people are thinking around their questions, and maybe Titi later you can share our addresses. Happy to share my email address for anybody who has further questions they don't want to necessarily share on the platform. I can just add a few other things that can help. Like Yomi said, have a strategy, set some goals, even when you do get an opportunity. I've seen people who did get an opportunity and arrived, but not necessarily with specific goals and run out of time. 2 years, 3 years goes very quickly. So in order to maximize the benefits of an international assignment, you want to set a goal at the beginning. What do you hope to accomplish in your first week, in your first month, in the first 100 days, in the first year? Once you settle in, what kind of skills do you want to gain during the assignment? Have defined milestones so that you stay focused on them, and then you leave every assignment more enriched for the next. And while we are waiting in Nigeria for that assignment and applying for those jobs, language skills are something that always help internationally. A lot of Nigerians now speak multiple languages. You might want to think about investing in language. The first language in international jobs is still English. By and large, it's still English. But it always helps when you speak a second language and a third language. If you speak German or Spanish or French, it's very handy. So instead of filling your telephone with music, you might want to fill it with language classes and listen to language lessons and learn a new language while waiting for that job. And lastly, be adventurous. Think not necessarily of the popular destinations. Think of the non-popular ones. Maybe you might find the moment of least resistance there, and more jobs there, more opportunities there, less competition, and before you know it, you are on the way. Once, like everything, once you step in, then the door opens, and many more opportunities further down the road.
Right, thank you very much, Mrs. Oben. And I quite agree with this point on speaking a second language. I know that in some places in Canada, you see roles and the recruiter is asking for someone or recruiting for a role with bilingual skills, and then you see them even earning much more. So it's best that, seek more knowledge in that area, increase your ability, and then I'm sure that dollars will flow in, the coins will increase. All right, we have more questions, please. Okay, someone has said they would like to have your contact details as well. And then I'd like to know if we can have them reach out to you. Okay, good. Mrs. Oben already sent her email address. Is it okay to also have them come to you via LinkedIn?
Absolutely. Please reach out.
Okay, okay.
I think we can close.
All right. So thank you very much, everyone. Thank you for your time. I hope we pick up writing pads, look through all the points that we have noted, and then draw up an action steps to ensuring that we achieve our goals. It's a wrap for today, and looking forward to seeing everyone in the next session. Come